After this, you'd think the NSPCC will be very careful who they associate with. Well, let's see. So who's behind the sort of shocking sex education materials I've been looking at in a lot of videos recently? Well, it's certainly not parents. It's the Scottish Government, it's Education Scotland, with their apparently inverted value system. But who leads them? It's obviously LGBT groups often, but also children's charities lead the government by the nose. If you look at the smacking ban, a lot of that is the children's charities, which are often government funded, call the shots, and the governments just run to heel and do exactly what they want them to do. Anyway, sticking with NSPCC, let's have a look at what they've done. They appointed an ambassador, Munro Bergdorf, who is a transgender person, and he said things like this. All white people were guilty of racial violence, and that the white race was the most violent and oppressive force of nature on earth. He appeared in Playboy magazine and on social media, made appeals to people facing, young people, children, having problems to contact him directly, which is completely out of order, obviously, from a child protection point of view. So eventually he was dropped by NSPCC, still given an honorary degree by Brighton University. But whoever would work for a children's charity and select someone like that to be their ambassador? I mean, it's almost unbelievable, isn't it? What sort of person makes that choice? Well, probably James Makings, the Celebrity and Talent Officer at NSPCC. And here we have a report of him masturbating dressed in rubber in the toilets of his workplace at NSPCC and filming it and posting this homemade pornography online. And eventually he was fired for that. Here's a quote from a media report about that incident. Many of those who accused the NSPC of transphobia following the decision to drop Bergdorf have now rallied to support Makings, the Celebrity and Talent Officer and amateur pornographer at the charity. Those who have raised concerns about the employment of a man who makes pornography from the offices of a children's charity have been smeared as homophobic, as if being gay absolves one from the responsibility of behaving appropriately at work. So who else did this James Makings choose? I wonder, what other celebrities might have caught his eye as suitable role models for kids? Well, we've seen the videos that the Scottish Government's using to teach about pornography in schools, made by the YouTuber Tomska. They promote pornography, encourage young people to explore various forms of perverted pornography. His own channel shows a really warped view of sex. Now, I can't be certain that James Makings actually selected him, but it seems likely, considering his role for the charity was to choose sort of celebrities to play a role. So if it was, well, that's that. If it wasn't, that's actually even worse, because it means there are other people in the charity who are just as clueless as he is. Now, Tomska was selected by Childline, but Childline is a branch of NSPCC, basically. Right, let's stick with NSPCC. Let's have a browse around their website. They've got a thing about healthy sexual behaviour. The stages of normal sexual behaviour. Now, for older kids, obviously it's saying there's normal to experiment and to have illegal underage sex. Now, in saying that's normal, that sort of implies that it's okay. They might claim it doesn't, but it actually does. I mean, what do you think about this statement? Some men rape women. That's perfectly normal. It happens everywhere in the world. Most men don't, but it's quite normal that some do. Now, that statement is technically correct, but it gives completely the wrong impression. It implies some sort of moral endorsement. It's not some problem we need to try and solve. It's just normal. It's just what happens. And that's what they're giving away. That's the message they're giving when they're talking about young people having sex. But anyway, that's a minor point. Let's go on to the main point. So again, we're talking about the stages of normal sexual behaviour. And there's a section for 0 to 4-year-olds. Here it is. Even at this stage, sexual behaviour is beginning to emerge through actions like kissing and hugging, showing curiosity about private body parts, talking about private body parts and using words like poo, willy and bum. Using the word poo is a sign of sexual behaviour. What? Right, playing house or doctors and nurses type games with the children, touching, rubbing or showing off their genitals, or masturbating as a comforting habit. So the basic message there is that babies and toddlers are actually very sexual. Who on earth would want to give that message about babies and toddlers. Why would they want to give it? So if an adult's giving a baby or toddler a hug or giving them a kiss, are they supposed to think, well, the baby is probably, or the toddler is probably finding this very sexual? And if that's the case, sort of why not the adult finding it a bit sexual as well? Just what are they getting at here? It sounds all wrong to me. Anyway, moving on with the NSPCC website. They've got a section about emotional abuse, and reading through it, it's very, very similar to the definition that's been proposed by the Scottish Government at the moment. As I say, these children's charities lead the Scottish Government by the nose. So according to the NSPCC, you are a child abuser if you are humiliating or constantly criticising a child, threatening, shouting at a child or calling them names, making the child the subject of jokes, or using sarcasm to hurt a child, blaming or scapegoating. Blaming a child is emotional abuse. Words fail me. Not recognising a child's own individuality, or trying to control their lives. You can see what they're doing here. They're trying to lower and lower the bar for state intervention in family life. And what this sort of definition of abuse does is it undermines the confidence and authority of parents, and it emboldens children and engenders in them a sort of, you haven't got the right to tell me what to do, you haven't got the right to tell me off or to stop me doing anything, just the children should call the shots. That's going to damage families. I mean, try to control their lives. You're a bad parent if you don't try to control the lives of your children to a significant extent. But the thinking, this sort of extreme liberal progressive thinking in these charities, is that children need to be liberated from parental authority. There needs to be equality between children and adults. Again, if you look at indicators of children's well-being, the big picture is that it just gets worse and worse and worse. The further and further we go down this path, the more problems it creates. But as with so many things with the Scottish Government, the only solution they can see is you just need to go ever further in the same direction, hoping that eventually things are going to turn around by magic at some point in the future. Now, I've talked about the NSPCC there. I'm sure there are lots of good people who work with the NSPCC, and there's lots of things they do that are very positive. But these concerns are very significant, and it's also very significant that they have the ear of the government to the extent that they do. Right, just while I'm talking about this sort of area, I just remembered a story the other day I thought it would be worth sharing, just as a sort of illustration of the sort of things that are going on in education and the sort of people who are influencing education. I mean, years ago when I was a housemaster in a boarding school looking after 12 and 13-year-old boys, we had an annual trip to the theatre every Christmas. We normally went to the Lyceum, the plays were excellent, but one year we decided we'd go to the Traverse Theatre, just round to the left of the Usher Hall in Edinburgh. So I booked the tickets, and they phoned up and said, would you like a drama workshop with the boys? So I said, oh, okay, right, that sounds fine. So I arranged for a person, a young man, to come and do this drama workshop. So I got the boys in the day room, probably about 12 and 13-year-old boys. There was a graduate assistant there, a young lady. She was probably about 22, 23, I don't know. So she was going to join in as well, so she was standing in this crowd of boys. So the bloke leading the session, he said, we're going to start with a little warm-up activity. Just everyone run around and put your hands on the bottom of the person in front of you. And when that happens, the person can run away. And we'll just do that for a while, just to break the ice. Well, this young lady standing in the middle, I mean, she was out like a shot, obviously, quite right. And at that point, I intervened. I went and said to this bloke, I said, forget it, you're not doing that. That is not an appropriate activity, shall we say. And he looked at me as if I was just being completely unreasonable. And said, oh, well, okay, I won't do it if you don't like it, but can't see what the problem is. Then he went on with the rest of the workshop. If I remember, I did actually phone up the Traverse Theatre and complain about that afterwards as well. But let's just have a look at the history of the Traverse Theatre. Let's look on Wikipedia. What do we find out about them? Throughout 1965, Traverse Theatre Club was threatened with police raids due to open homosexual activity at a time when it was illegal. 1967, Daily Express described some of their programme as filth on the fringe, some show that had people dressed up as 6-foot-tall sex organs. 1971, they were given a grant, but they refused to give assurances on the decency of future productions. So that seems to be sort of in the DNA, the Traverse Theatre. Why are there no more recent things? Probably more recently, they've done exactly the same things but just it doesn't make the news. It's just considered quite normal. But again, it's just an insight into the sort of people that are being put in a position to influence children. They're seen as the suitable people to be able to take this sort of agenda and to interact with young people to promote it. Right, just to finish off this little snippet from Twitter the other day, Julian Martin, SNP, MSP. She put a thing on Twitter saying that she'd been given a chew toy for her dog, like a doll of Boris Johnson. So you've got the Boris Johnson doll, and the dog chews it. I mean, pretty infantile. And to be honest, is that the tone of political discourse we want in the nation? I don't think it really is. Anyway, so the Scottish Family Party replied and said, infantile. How about addressing an important issue, the SNP's promotion of porn in school? She replied saying, here's an idea. Try and persuade people of your arguments by not insulting them. It tends to work better. So somehow or other, having a doll of a political opponent, having your dog chew it, is perfectly responsible, reasonable debate. Whereas when we call it infantile, that's been insulting. Anyway, so your Boris and dog stunt is infantile. The SNP's promotion of porn is a serious issue. We're not trying to persuade you. We're asking you what you think. What's your view? Porn is not promoted in schools. Not opinion, a fact. Right. Why she says that, I do not know. So we replied, wrong. Watch the video, and this one's a couple of videos. So telling young people to have fun with porn is not promoting it. Please elaborate on your logic. I assume that telling kids to have fun cycling wouldn't be promoting cycling, according to you. And from that point on, no reply, obviously. So what you get, same as with John Swinney, you just get absolute assertion that they do not promote pornography. No argument, no discussion, no analysis of the materials, just flat denial, and then ignore it and hope it'll go away. Well, I'm afraid it's not going to go away. So I've made this video. I'd started making it a while ago. I'd made the notes and got the clips together. From now on, I'll be making things more related to the election campaign. Obviously, if you haven't seen, I'm going to be standing the election against Ian Blackford in Ross, Skye and Lochaber. There's a link below if you want to support the crowdfunder for that. There's also a link below where you can buy tickets for our conference on the 16th of November. That's in Edinburgh. Non-members are welcome. That's going to be a great day. And also, if you want to join the party, there's a link below as well. Thanks for watching.